Can everybody see both Brandon and I? Yes. Okay. Cool. All right. So Brandon, to get started, can you tell us what you did before Salesforce, like your education, your work experience, and then how you came to find out about Salesforce?
Yeah, I was a PE teacher for 12 years prior to becoming a Salesforce admin last June. So I've only been in my role for almost 10 months. It'll be like 10 months tomorrow, maybe. And before that, 12 years as a PE teacher, most of it elementary level, just because, I think when you're a teacher, you have the age group that you kind of gel with the best. And for me, it was the little ones. I did teach some middle school in there. At some of my schools were K-8. I did high school for almost 1 year.
Oh.
Yeah, it was that bad that I left in February of the first year I was there, so not even a full year. But in that situation, I taught health and PE, and it was mostly teaching health. So imagine going from the gym every single day, like all day, to sitting in a classroom most of the day. It was quite a change and something I just wasn't quite ready for. And that kind of coincided with moving from Arizona to Indiana. So I had to take a job, even though I'm, maybe wasn't ready for it. When I was in college, I really didn't know what I was going to do. I really liked football and coaching. And I'm like, okay, if you're a teacher, you can coach. But in undergrad, I didn't even get my educator certification. So I went and got a master's in sport administration right after that. And even then, I started working in the event management space. And it wasn't until I worked a summer camp with kids where I decided I wanted to be a teacher. I was like, okay, I can do this. And I was with them for 8 hours a day. So I was like, oh, I can teach. So I went back again. So I was in school for 7.5 years. So I should be a doctor or something, but, just ended up becoming a teacher. But in my teaching career, I'd say the first 6 years, 7 years, I really liked it. It's stressful, as anyone who's a teacher here can attest, but eventually started getting kind of burnt out, mostly with the ancillary stuff. At one of my roles, whenever the custodian was gone, guess who had to become the custodian?
No way.
Only for lunchtime and cleaning up. Well, it was my gym, so I had to clean it up and
oh my god,
get it ready for my next class. So there were times where I'm literally wiping down tables, pushing them out of the way while my class is waiting to come in. So just got a little stressful with that about maybe 7, 8, 9 years in. And then I hung on for dear life for student loan reasons. So I got those forgiven. And then I'm like, see you later. Let's get out of here.
So did you I might be jumping ahead, but did you resign and then have time where you were able to just focus on studying Salesforce, or were you studying Salesforce while you were still working?
I was studying while I was still working, sort of. I would really only do it during breaks, spring break, fall break, summer break, stuff like that. So I first heard about Salesforce in it was December 2019, maybe something like that. It was Bradley's first appearance on the Choose the 5 podcast.
Okay.
Before Talent Stacker was even a thing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what is this? I jumped on Trailhead literally with no guidance, except for, hey, Bradley said, do the beginning admin trail and the intermediate, and you should be able to pass your exam. So I'm like, okay, I'll do that. But I liked the gamification so much. So I was just picking and choosing badges and getting whatever with no clear direction of what I was doing. So I was on Trailhead for 18 months before I got certified. So it happened to be in June when I got certified. So the school year ended in May. So I had I think I did 3 weeks straight of like pretty hard studying, maybe 6 hours a day on focus on force, take the practice exams, see what I was good at, see what I was bad at. And then just focus really hard and just was, I had it scheduled and I'm like, all right, I got to take it on that day. So I just passed on my first try, barely. I think I got 2 more questions right than the minimum. So.
And did you end up taking it from home or going in somewhere and having it proctored there?
It was during COVID.
Oh.
It was 2020, June 2020. So I just took it from home, in the bedroom.
Oh.
Like, just had to have the 1 cam, and that's still what it is. That's how I've done all my exams. So.
Okay. So what other certificates do you have?
Platform app builder and UX designer.
And did you get those before you were hired for your first job or after?
After.
Okay.
So I only got hired with the admin certification, a little bit of volunteer experience, and then kind of building stuff in my own dev org.
Had you done the volunteer project through Talent Stacker? Is that how you got your volunteer experience?
I got signed up for it. They put you in the group of 4, but I went on catchafire.org.
Catch a Fire.
And that is a place where nonprofits can post like volunteer opportunities.
Okay.
So I found that right around the same time they put me in the group. And I'm like, oh, well, I don't know about this Talent Stacker volunteer thing. I don't know how that's going to go, but I'll just do this other one instead. So I'm like, I'm going to drop out. And it was with a food bank in New York City, actually.
Oh, cool.
So, totally remote. It was like a group of 4 of us. And every week we would meet and kind of go over some things we want to build and put in. And yeah, it was
and
fun.
Do you feel like that now that you have an admin job, do you feel like the volunteer experience like gave you good experience for that and was like true to real life as an admin?
Yes, in a way, but like it was like got me 1% ready, like in a good way though, like just because I was only putting in like an hour or 2 per week towards it. That when you're in 40 hours a week in a real job, you're just you're like the first couple of weeks and months, you're just kind of trying to keep your head above water. And like 1 or 2 hours of volunteering a week just didn't get me ready for it volume wise, but actually doing the work so we had a couple different sandboxes, doing the work in the sandbox and then pushing it over to production, which I mean, at that time I've never even done. They're like, what's a change set? And I mean, some of you probably don't even know.
Right.
But it's how you get your changes you make in your sandbox, because that's where you're always supposed to do it, into production is through a change set or a couple other ways. Not even know what that was. So in my volunteer experience, I got to witness that. So it was good.
Good.
Definitely the hands-on stuff helps.
And then I wanted to ask you, because you had mentioned your other 2 certifications. Does your job, do they give you like time to study on Trailhead, or do they say we want you to get these certifications, or is that all on your own? How does that work for you?
They don't say, hey, you can take these hours every week to study, but we work on like a ticket-based system. So these like Salesforce help desk tickets come to us as cases in Salesforce, and we try to work through them as best we can. If there's some time here and there during the workday, we can definitely use it to study, and they reimburse us with our tests. I mean, I paid for it before I even was hired for my platform app builder, and I posted on LinkedIn that I passed, and then my boss was like, hey, submit that so we can reimburse you for. I'm like, well, I bought it before you I work for you guys. She's like, I don't care.
Nice.
So they're very supportive and they want us to get it done.
Yeah, that can be different than when you're used to working in education,
Yeah, they're like, you didn't get prior approval. Sorry, can't help you.
Yeah.
It's totally different.
Yeah. Okay, so tell us, once you got your certification, tell us what it was like going through the interview process, the application process. How long did it take you? I know personally, I'm most worried about going into interviews and not coming from like the business tech world, how those interviews will look.
Yeah, I was kind of in a unique situation where I couldn't just apply to everything. Again, student loan reasons. I was going for the forgiveness. So I had to wait. I got certified in June. I applied, but only to like nonprofits and 501c3 organizations or like government organizations. So I was really limited on who I could apply to. So I was like, okay, if I could get a Salesforce job, then I can quit teaching before the next school year or during the next school year or whatever. So I applied, let's see, the first 6 months just to here and there. Didn't even get like a whiff of like interviews or anything. And then I heard Bradley talk about Talent Stacker again on the Choose F5 podcast. I was like, well, I'm certified already. I don't know if it's worth it to pay the fee and get the program, but best decision of my life. Help get my LinkedIn going, build my network, all that good stuff. And there, I started the program in December. Still didn't apply like a ton. I think I took the month of January off from applying, but in February, I'm like, okay, if I can start applying now, interview whatever, but not start until the summer, maybe. That was kind of the plan. And I applied to nonprofit organizations, non-501c3s, like regular businesses. Got a few interviews. Landed one that's literally 1.5 miles away from my house. And the interview process where I'm working now was really the best ever that I've been through, even teaching wise. And in the job description, it says, if you don't match all these qualifications, apply anyway. Basically, it said something like that. Like even if you don't feel like you're qualified, but you fit some of them. And seeing that is like, wow, that's great. So I interviewed with like the HR person first, and it was just basic screening stuff. And then I interviewed with, it was like the support or service manager, and she was like the best ever. She's like, oh, do you have any concerns about going into the business world? And I'm like, yeah, well, I'm just a teacher trying to break into something that I've never like done before. I have a little bit of experience, but not a lot. And she said, whoa, just wait right there. You being a teacher is way, you bring a lot of talents to, whatever. And I thought about it and I'm like, yeah, she's right. We make so many decisions every day in our classroom about individual students, dealing with parents, admin, so many different levels of our organization, which just happens to be a school, that we do have those skills that transfer over.
That was one thing I was going to ask you is, for those of us who maybe haven't started applying yet, what are some things you think we should put on our resume that are transferable skills from teaching to Salesforce?
There was one question I got from every single person was, how do you handle like competing deadlines? And I just said, look, every day I have to teach something new. I have deadlines to fit my teaching into each class. I have these pressures from my admin to, run whatever special event in a couple weeks. How do I plan all this stuff, prioritize that all at once? And it's kind of hard. It was kind of difficult for me to see at first, like how it directly translates over. But if you just change the name of, like, if you just think about like your organization, your school is the business,
Right.
the principal is your manager, your coworkers are like your teammates, and then the students or whatever are your clients. Like, how can you like rephrase that in business terms? Oh, I increased client performance by X%. Like, they like seeing those numbers and stuff on your resume. And I don't think I had many of those, but I mean, I did like physical fitness testing, but it's something I did test and have numbers to like back up. So if you have something like that, would definitely be valuable to put on there.
And so now that you're in it, in the Salesforce ecosystem, do you feel like you're like, oh yeah, this was really helpful as a teacher? Like, what are things that come up that make you think that?
Oh, let's see.
Like, for example, a lot of times you're dealing with parents. Are there times, like that you have managers or stakeholders that you use those same skills that you used when talking with parents about behaviors or whatever, that then help you with those stakeholders?
Yeah, that's a great example. I'm sure any of you who are teachers have never gotten the angry email from the parent, like, "Whoa, I heard this happened to my kid in your class at recess," or whatever. But that's a great example, and being able to diffuse that situation as a teacher does carry over. So I work with like the sales department, service department, and then some of our vendors that those specific departments work with. And like the sales guys, hey, when is this going to be done? You said 2 weeks ago. And I'm kind of the middleman to the vendor. I'm like, hey, vendor, come on, like, where is this? We need this as soon as possible. And I'm kind of diffusing the sales manager, talking them off a ledge, like, hey, we're working on it. It's on them. That's probably the biggest one that I see in like a day-to-day, or I mean, it doesn't happen every day, but every once in a while, having to talk with that manager and be like, hey, it's not going to happen right away. And just talking them down, giving them realistic expectations.
So what are your favorite things about your job?
Favorite things, I learn something new every single day. Even if it's something as little, I saw somebody post like, oh, when you click on the gear icon in your org and it says edit page or edit object. I didn't know that for, I don't know, 4 months of my job. I always clicked to set up and then went to like object manager and then found little things like that. And we all know Salesforce is tricky. It has all these little weird things, and just figuring those out every single day. So I'm like getting 1% better. And, over the course of these last 10 months, I'm like 1,000% better than I was when I first started.
And are you like so happy that you made this transition?
I am very happy I made the transition. I'm not like dreading like waking up in the morning super early to go do bus duty. I get to sleep in, take the dog for a walk, work from home if I want. I'm pretty fortunate. I can go into the office or work from home. I get kind of sick of my house, so I go in every once in a while to see other people. But really good decision. And I know like pay comes into it for a lot of people, but I think I took a lower paying job to be closer to home and to have that remote option. So I'm not making any more than I was as a teacher, but lifestyle wise, it's 100 times better.
Yeah. So have you converted any other teachers yet?
I have not.
No.
I just help. I like helping out the teachers in my network on LinkedIn
Yes.
and Talent Stacker. So
Yes. Let's see. What did your study schedule look like when you were preparing for the exam? You said that it was like 18 months because you were just kind of like hodgepodging trailhead trails. But once you got like closer to the exam, then you were saying, I think this is similar to what I do, but doing the focus on force and then just really honing in on the sections that you're not doing as well on and studying those sections.
So I did like a full practice exam first, and I saw like strengths and weaknesses. And then I would take my low scoring sections, kind of review the notes on those. And then I would do they have practices for those specific sections as well. And then I would go back and do another practice exam. And I think they have 5 for admin or 6 for admin.
Yep, I believe 6.
So I would just kind of keep going through that. And then I think I ended up going through all 5. And towards the end, I was scoring like 85, 80, whatever. I'm like, okay, I'm ready. I just want to get this over with.
Yeah, I've heard that if you're getting 80s, then you're ready.
Yeah, my 80s on the practice turned into like a 68 or whatever, like barely passing. So, but it worked.
So tell us what a typical day as a Salesforce admin looks like.
First hour or so. So I work like 9 to 5, or it's pretty flexible. It's kind of like look through the emails that came in overnight. And for me, it's mostly like archive. Okay, that one's important. Kind of go through it. The person, one of my teammates checks the queue in the morning, and she'll assign tickets. So I go through my email, check my tickets, anything that came in. If there's something I can accomplish fast, I just try to get it done. Like certain things take 5 minutes, and I like to get those out of the way. And then at 10 o'clock, we have our daily stand up. So that might be familiar as an agile term for some people, but we just kind of talk about what we did the previous day and what we're kind of working on and any problems we're having. We help each other out.
So is there like a group of admins at your company?
Oh yeah, there's a team of 3 of us.
Okay.
So I'm like the new person. There was someone, she only has like 6 more months experience before me. And she was the only one there when I started. So there was just 2 of us. And then we got, she's called our systems architect, but she worked at our company previously for like 2 years, left to become a consultant, and then came back because she didn't like being a consultant. So she has like knowledge of how everything works. So
nice to be on a team and have someone like that.
That is definitely something I was looking for. Right. Some people got those solo admin jobs, and I was like, no, that's not for me. I can't do that. I need someone there to like hold my hand, basically, if I have a problem.
Yes.
So we have our team meeting. Any other meetings throughout the day, we check on, but it's pretty flexible. We have like short-term tickets that can be done in 5 minutes. We have some that take like a couple days to kind of work through. It's not like nonstop, but you work on them here and there. And then we have like long-term projects. So we really have to figure out how to balance those, different expectations from the people who submit those tickets. They come back at us, be like, hey, have you got this done? But we try to get everything done each week, and then we do our change sets like on Thursday mornings.
Okay. Oh,
so
cool.
we give ourselves time. We tell them, okay, we'll get it done probably by next Thursday, or maybe like 2 weeks on Thursday.
So do you try to, what's the phrase where you under promise, over deliver? Yeah.
Kind of, especially when I first started, before we started this whole like 1 week sprint thing. If there was something that could be done in 5 minutes, I would just grab it and do it right away. So I think my like ticket count was like super high then, because I would just take the easy ones when I saw them. And I'm like an inbox zero kind of person. So if I see that, I need to check it right away and get it done. I have a hard time letting things sit there in my queue and not take action on them. I mean, so I do emails in the morning, team meeting, then work on tickets and other meetings. Like I have weekly meetings with the support manager, marketing manager, and services manager to kind of go through what tickets their team has put in and prioritize that. And then, otherwise it's pretty flexible.
It sounds like it. And
what we can do.
Your sounds like your team is trusted, like, okay, this is what needs to get done, like go ahead and go do it, like not micromanaged.
Our immediate boss, she uses Salesforce, but she doesn't know how it works. She's like, oh, you guys just take care of it, basically. We have to ask her like, hey, can we do this, can we do that? And she's like, yeah, sure. Like she trusts us like 1,000%. I could be like, yeah, we don't need to use cases anymore, we can just delete them all. And she'd be like, oh, okay. Like,
awesome.
She's very trustworthy. She believes in us and supports us like 100%. And she pushes back against the other managers.
Nice.
If need be. So
so she has your back.
Yeah.
Okay, let's open it up. If any, I think there was a couple questions in the chat. If anyone else wants to add to the chat, or if you want to unmute yourself and ask a question to Brandon, we'll go and do that. So we have one question. Can you please share the entry-level salary range?
Sure. Well, mine, I'll tell you what I make. I don't care. Mine was 55,000 a year, which is low, I think, on the salary range. They offered me 50. I said, no, I need to make at least as much as I was teaching. And that was 55. So I probably could have. Go ahead.
I was going to say, do they have they said like after a year it'll increase by this much? Because it seems like from what I've heard, like after a year you can be making quite a bit more. Or are you like, okay, well, after a year I'll negotiate. If they're not going to increase, then move companies? Like what's
so what they initially offered was 50,000, and then after 6 months we'll go up to 55, if you're like catching on to things and learning and stuff. And I'm like, well, no, just 55 right away. So I think the plan is at a year we'll discuss things.
Okay.
But I know other people who've entered in making 6 figures. But I think, I don't know, average is around 70.
I think that's what I have been reading as well.
And I think for me, it was more of a self-confidence thing and like not having any business background. Like a lot of people who make more had some sort of business background, either in hospitality or I don't know, just different things. And if they go into consulting right away, you usually make more. If you're an admin, you usually make a little bit less.
Okay, I was wondering that.
Yeah.
So I think Richard asked, what does a compressed 18-month time cycle look like?
I think you can do it in like 6 weeks if you had a plan, like the Talent Stacker, like pacing guide. There's one for 6 weeks, there's one for 12 or something, and then one for like 18 weeks. And I just didn't know what I was doing, so I kind of did that. And if I was lucky, I would do it every week. But it was usually like go on one weekend, take a couple weeks off. Oh, fall break's coming. Okay, I'll do quite a bit during fall break. I just didn't have like an open time or desire to kind of do it all really fast.
Because you didn't join Talent Stacker until after you got your admin certification.
Yeah. And then when I saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, I wish that was there for me. Because then I would have saw it and I would have like crushed it in the 6 weeks after school. I would have stopped doing everything else.
But I mean, that's pretty cool that it's still worth it for people, even if they already have their admin certification. So after you signed up for Talent Stacker, how long until you got your job?
It was, so I signed up in December, got the offer in April, so 4 months. That's but awesome. That was with like, literally I took a whole month off of not doing anything. Like in January, I didn't work on anything. So.
And how many applications would you say that you put in?
I probably put 50 maybe, but I think the first like 20 were just kind of like fill it out and didn't have like a really good resume. So maybe 30 serious like that were actually serious and decent, and I like put time and changed my resume to kind of match it more.
And then how many interviews did you say you had? Like 4?
Yeah, maybe like 3 or 4.
And did those were they like you went through like 2 different interviews for each company, or how did that work?
So one was like just screening with HR. One was with a consultancy that it wasn't like the hiring manager, but he was like the project manager, I guess, like one of their project managers. So it was like just an initial screening interview. Totally bombed that one. Didn't prepare for the like learning about the company or anything. So make sure you do that. And then I don't remember the other one, but when I got hired, it was, let's see, service manager, like the VP, who's my boss now. And then I had 4 just like team member, like talk to this person quick for 15 minutes, kind of get a feel if I'm like a good fit for their culture kind of thing. So it ended up being like 6.
Wow.
But really it was like 2 real interviews and then 4 little chats.
So did they give you like a tech assignment or anything to make sure that you knew how to do certain things, or how did that work?
No, but I did bring up my volunteer experience and my dev org that I built a like mileage tracking app for running.
Oh, cool.
There's a video on YouTube about it somewhere. I don't know if it's live or anything. But just kind of talked through some things with the 2 team members who actually use Salesforce. I think they asked me like a few not really difficult questions.
Oh, that's nice.
About Salesforce. So, and one of them was like leaving. She was leaving and I was replacing her basically. So,
okay.
Yeah, wasn't too technical at all.
Richard asked, is your work contract work?
No, it's just a full-time W-2 position.
All right, if anyone wants to unmute and ask questions or type something in the chat box for Brandon, you're welcome to.
I'll jump in.
Is there anything? Oh, go ahead, Richard.
So how important is your career work experience? You know, I get the feeling having a certification is the gate open, but how much weight does your career experience, create the opportunity?
I don't think it really mattered in my landing a role. Really just talking about how I use Salesforce, building my mileage tracker app. I went into like details like, oh, I made a flow for this. I made custom objects for that and custom fields. And I displayed badges and hid badges and did all this stuff and made a progress bar using stages and stuff like that. Just being able to talk your way through Salesforce, I think, is more important than your background.
Did they ask you much about your teaching background?
Not really. And then, like, I thought more people would be interested in that when I started at the company. And we kind of did like, oh, talk to this manager within the first 2 weeks, like really short meetings, like meet these people around the company. And they could care less. They're like, oh, you're the new Salesforce guy. And, you know, if I had a background in, like, my company, we sell like little tiny like computer servers, basically. If I had the tech background, they'd probably be more interested, but it doesn't matter. I help them do the Salesforce stuff and they sell it and market it and all that stuff.
How often are you using flows in your work?
Oh, all the time.
Yeah.
When I first started, I was like, oh, process builder is my best friend. I hate flows. But eventually you sit in on a few like webinars about flows, and now I don't think I could go backwards.
Okay.
And even with like email alerts, like, okay, I can do a workflow one in like 10 minutes. A flow takes a couple hours to like debug it and make sure it actually works the right way. But it's a lot of fun. And I think, okay, this should work, but it doesn't work. And then I bounce it off my team and they're like, oh yeah, you should try this instead. Every day I'm either doing one or one of my teammates is, or we're updating an old one.
Okay, so when someone, like, is it like in Trailhead where someone will say like, okay, I need this, like specific, like they give you a requirement. Is it pretty simple like that? Or are you like, okay, how am I going to meet that requirement? How am I going to do that?
It's more like a super badge where they use the incorrect terminology.
Okay.
The people asking you, hey, can you make it so when I sell something, it adds up the total on the account?
Okay.
And you're like, what does that mean? Like, it doesn't translate into like Salesforce terms. So you kind of have to translate it yourself. Okay, they want, when an op is closed, the total amount to roll up onto the accounts, like, and that takes some getting used to. And every company is gonna be a little different, the terminology they use. But it's part of the challenge, and it's kind of frustrating, but it's also part of the fun, like getting it to work for them.
Pravina wants to know, how can I grow my career in the Salesforce ecosystem from a Salesforce admin? So I've wondered that too, like, it seems like the consultants are what, like, go make the big money, but I'm guessing she's wondering, how can, as a Salesforce admin, grow your career?
That is a great question. I think if you can get involved in the community, and like I've been jumping on a lot of user groups from around the country and around the world, and if you can like show them value of, you know, what you know or what you're doing, then you might still be an admin at a different company, just like at a higher level. So I kind of consider myself like a junior admin right now. And you can definitely grow to senior admin either at the same company or by moving somewhere else. Or like our teammate who came back, she's our system architect. She doesn't have like the 9 certifications that you need, but she knows enough, and she has, I don't know, 3 different certs than I do. But I'm sure I hope she gets paid twice as much as me. Let's put it that way. Because she knows way more than twice as much. but there is a way to stay an admin and progress.
Mhm.
That's kind of the track I'm on. Like, I want to make more money, but I don't know if I want to be a consultant though.
Right.
So
Right. Leah asked, favorite resource for learning flows. That's a good one.
I think a really good one is Terry's Tidbits.
Okay.
He has a YouTube channel. He has a website. He's the user group leader for the Des Moines, Iowa group. And he has something that I kind of use. He's a series of blog posts and videos that were from process builders to flow. And he'd show you how to basically translate it in process builder. You have the different nodes and then whatever off it. And he'd say, okay, you take this and what does it look like in a flow? And he'd kind of go back and forth between on the screens. That's a good one. I have Daryl Moon's flow course. I don't know what it's called.
I think that's what it is.
Paid $10 for it. I think I went through half of one just because I got my job and I was working at the time.
That's on crm.com, isn't that right? Is it?
I can't
Or is it
remember.
Udemy?
It's not Udemy. It's his own website. It's
Okay.
Certified CRM. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, Certified CRM. That's right. Those are great resources.
And then get a dev org. And my first flow was kind of like a roll up. So when I added miles to my flow, it would add them all together and post it.
Oh, cool.
But then I had another branch I accidentally put the mileage in wrong. If I deleted it, I needed it to subtract away as well.
Nice.
And I don't know why I didn't use just a roll up field, but
live and learn.
Yeah.
Apart from LinkedIn and Indeed, where can we look for a job opening? Where did you look?
I looked on LinkedIn and Indeed, and I think what a lot of people do, they're stuck looking at Salesforce Admin or Salesforce Consultant. I actually, instead of narrowing it down, I just typed in Salesforce and kind of looked at what was near me, because my role is actually Salesforce help desk support specialist.
Oh.
So it's not even admin technically. Okay. So every once in a while, just search Salesforce by itself. Besides those, there's a user group on the community. It's called @job postings. And then there's one @job opportunities. And that's on Trailhead, the Trailhead communities.
Oh, yes.
Those two, and that's just people from all over. They put like a job posting in, and then it shares it to that group. And you can turn your emails on like for each group, and I did every single post for that one.
Okay.
So whenever someone posts there, I get an email right away.
And so your current job, how did you end up finding that? Was it Indeed, LinkedIn, or one of these Trailhead?
I think it was LinkedIn.
Okay.
And I just searched Indianapolis Salesforce and it popped up. And then I looked I always look on the map if it's in Indianapolis where it's at, and it was literally like a mile and a half away. I'm like, going for it.
That was meant to be right there. Yeah. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And so you were mentioning user groups. How do you find these user groups? Like, are they Facebook groups in different areas like Salesforce Dallas, or what are the user groups? Or are they through Trailhead?
If you go to Trailhead and then the community tab, mm-hmm. You click on that, and then I'll post it here in the you can search by location, is usually what I did. And then, so I joined my local one, and then there's a calendar somewhere else. that, I would literally look for what meetings am I like able to go to at night, like after work.
Oh, cool.
And I would, so if you go to that link, the events and then calendar, and then when you click on it, there's a little tab that changes the time zones or the time that displays. One tab is group, so whatever's the local time for that group, and then I always click mine, so I see it in Eastern time. I'm like, oh, this is at 6:30. Oh, I'll jump on that. So I do mostly like East Coast, Central, sometimes West Coast stuff.
Yeah, and have you
not
been
too
to
late.
any like live meetups with Salesforce people?
I did one. This is pre-COVID even. It was in October 2019. There was the indie user group did a hackathon.
Oh.
And it was pretty cool. We went to some like conference room basically. And there was a local nonprofit that they like plant trees in the neighborhood and clean up neighborhoods and stuff. And they gave us a situation like, okay, we want people to be able to register their block for cleanups. And they had Salesforce already. And they said, this is what we have. How can you make it better? And they put us in groups. And we had to kind of come up with a solution. And luckily in our group, we had a girl who used to work for that company. So she had a really good idea. But then we presented it to all the other groups, and there was 3 judges, and they had to pick the best one. And we demoed first, and our person just kind of talked through it because the projector didn't work for us for some reason. So she just kind of talked through it, and we all kind of explained our little part. And the other groups, the projector worked, and they got to show everything. And somehow we ended up still winning.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, it was really cool. I want it to be back in person. You just get to know the people better.
Yeah.
That was the
really
only one.
cool.
It's been almost 2 years, 3 years since that.
Yeah.
So.
That's awesome. All right. Does anyone else want to jump in with any questions for Brandon? We're coming up on an hour here.
Is anybody else a teacher? If you could just raise your hand using the little thing if you want.
Yeah. Do a little.
Richard, you are?
I'm actually a dean at a community college, but I've been
Oh.
been in skilled trade education for 20 years and looking for transition sooner or later.
Yeah.
So
I think having that like administrative experience kind of gives you a broad understanding of how your organization works. And I know a bunch of community colleges use Salesforce already. So
we actually went through I was on a CRM committee to seek out a new platform for our institution, and it's been tabled at this point.
Yeah.
Although Salesforce was the most expensive, it had all what we needed though. And anyway, so yeah, so I resonated with your question in regards to how do you set your priorities, because that is a ever moving around objective for the day. So
yeah, I mean, we have departments that want a bunch of different things, and guess what? We can't do them all. So we're like, okay, this quarter we can help you with this. Next quarter we can do something. Oh, that's got to wait till next year. It's, everyone deals with it. So I see a raised hand from somebody on their iPhone. There's no name.
Yep, I saw that.
So
And
maybe
then,
they're a teacher.
Atif said, I went from business to teaching to complete my doctoral. So he's got the business and the teaching. That seems like good background.
Yeah, definitely. And the nice thing about our job is like we configure Salesforce for the users, and we have to teach them. So I still get to do some of the teaching.
Yeah.
Just
So
in a
how
technical way.
Do you mainly do that like in person, or do you make videos where you're recording your screen? How are you teaching the end users?
So we did let's see, recently we did what was it, a scheduler. We had some new tool. We just kind of had, it was almost like webinar style, like come to this meeting at this time. We'll demo it. Here's a FAQ sheet about it. And then Slack us if you have any questions and need more one-on-one or something. Not really in person. I mean, sometimes I go to the person if they're in the office, and I am too, and show them in person, but most of the time it's Zoom one-on-ones or screenshots and like arrows, like, hey, click here, click here. That's how you do it.
So does your company use Chatter, or is it strictly Slack?
We use Chatter, not to like go back and forth. It's, if you're making a comment like about a case, usually it's a case. I don't really see it on like ops or anything like that. But if it's something you want saved, and it's like internal, you use Chatter. If it's just kind of talking to someone about it that doesn't need to be saved, you can use Slack, because people can delete Slack messages and edit them. So it's not really the official thing. I don't use Chatter like a ton. But every once in a while, if they're not responding to Slack, I can post something in Chatter and at message them, and it'll put the little thing on the bell for them.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, anybody else have any questions for Brandon? This has been, you've given me a lot of tips, and I am like, oh, an admin, that sounds like a good path. Like, sounds like a good deal.
Yeah, it was definitely what I was looking for, a team environment where I can learn from others.
Yes.
And not all the stress be on me.
Right.
And not the time pressure as consultants have. So
yeah, great. Okay, well, I'm going